Earlier, we were speaking about diversifying the economy and turning toward agriculture and environmental sustainability. And now we want to find out the youth's views on the same topic. This morning with me is the Vice President of the Economic Society of the University of the West Indies, Dana Soupdeo, and we're going to ventilate that topic. Good morning, Dana.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we have been hearing the phrase diversify the economy on platforms and on many other spheres for quite a long time, and we want to find out what is the youth's view on that specific topic. If I'm going to be more specific, I'm speaking about agriculture and environmental sustainability.
Great. Well, as a youth studying economics and having just graduated from an economics degree, diversification is a familiar term to me. In fact, it's a term I'm quite probably at this point fed up of hearing because, it's only talk. In the past, we've seen for decades past that we're saying diversify, and we have seen failed attempts at it. I think what we are realizing now, especially in the COVID-19 pandemic, is that we are practicing very unsustainably. We are living on very unsustainably. We are, exploiting our energy sector. We are exploiting the Earth's resources very unsustainably. And I think it's time that we learn how to really have an economy that's, geared towards agriculture, gets towards manufacturing, and one that practices its economics in a way that puts the environment at the forefront as well. I think a way we can do that is actually by starting some education reforms, and I think using GATE is possibly an avenue that we can look at. For example, we can say, well, hey, let's steer the education sector into the non-booming tradable sector. Let's give incentives for students to go into the agriculture sector. Let's give incentives for students to go into the manufacturing sector. And things like that, we can possibly start looking at reforms, because I think what this pandemic has done, it has brought a halt to all economic activity, and if not all, in some economies, the majority. In Trinidad, we've been seeing a lot of economic downturn in the past years, and I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to really sit down and think hard and think critically about the choices we made in the past and how we can change them to have sustainable economic growth and development in the future.
Now, for a country that is so dependent on oil, and we have seen what the pandemic has done, it has shown us that oil is something that you cannot rely on all the time, because we have seen in the past few months the price of oil per barrel that has plummeted, even to the point in some cases where it has gone to in negative values, where it was more expensive to produce oil than it was profitable. Now, for a country that's so dependent on oil, how can we even begin to diversify the economy?
Well, for example, we have what we call non-booming tradable sectors, and these are the sectors that we can earn foreign revenue from, apart from our energy sector. Our energy sector is what you call the booming tradable sector. It's a sector that we have paid attention to the most in the past. It's the sector that has brought us our economic success. But with it has also brought us some negative effects on it, and negative effects we're seeing now, failed attempts of diversification and things like that. So what we can actually start to do is look at the excess capacities in these non-booming tradable sectors. And when I say non-booming tradable, I'm talking about your agriculture and manufacturing. We can start looking at these sectors. For example, the manufacturing sector has over a 30% excess capacity. And Trinidad and Tobago, we are what we call a labor abundance economy. We produce our goods and services in sectors that are labor intensive. And these sectors that are labor intensive, they have excess capacity. And we're also seeing high unemployment rates and things like this now. So what we can start doing is somehow guiding our citizens and paying attention to these sectors and pushing man labor into these particular sectors.
I like one of the topics that you brought up earlier. You're saying that education needs to be tied into diversification, and there needs to be incentive and funding toward those steps. What further steps do you think are needed?
Well, I think it's time for the government to. I think we've been wasting resources in the past, And I think the upcoming budget is going to be a tough pill to swallow. But I think what they can do, if they are finding that they have limited funding and they need to chop back on gates a little bit, is that they can actually start only offering gates to the sectors like agriculture and manufacturing, so engineering, agriculture and faculty and all tertiary educations and things like that.
Now, we said there was cutting back on gates a little bit, but don't you think that would kind of go against what you were saying earlier about funding being provided to alternative industries outside of energy that would help gear our economy toward diversification?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear you before.
I was saying what you just said, it kind of goes against what you were saying earlier, because what you just said is to maybe they could consider cutting back on things like gates a little, but doesn't it go against what you were saying earlier about maybe through GATE providing funding and an incentive toward education in alternative fields outside of energy and oil?
Not quite. What I'm saying is that you can take the GATE program and if you want to cut back on it, you can stop offering GATE to certain degree programs, but you can only offer it to those degree programs. So it would be kind of an incentive, for students to actually go into degrees like agriculture and these things.
And again, as we were focusing on agriculture and manufacturing specifically, what do you think, from a youth standpoint, what do you believe? What do you believe it is youth's my bad. What do you believe the thinking and the thought process it is when it comes to young people and agriculture?
I think there's a bit of a stigma around agriculture these days. Everyone wants a degree to go into quote unquote corporate environment. Everyone wants to, work in an office, and people tend to think agriculture is, they don't tend to think like, it's a really good field to get into and stuff like that. But I would quite disagree, studying economics and seeing how vital agriculture is, seeing that we're in the middle of a pandemic and seeing just how much we lack food security. Agriculture is really the backbone of the economy.
And how do you think we can encourage more youth to gear themselves toward a career in agriculture and manufacturing?
Sorry, I think our connection is a bit unstable. I didn't quite hear you again.
Let me repeat myself. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
What do you think is needed to help incentivize youth toward a career in agriculture and even in manufacturing?
Okay, I didn't get the beginning of the sentence.
That's okay. In this day of technology, sometimes being our friend and sometimes not being our friend, we do have to roll with the punches. But what I was asking was, what do you believe is necessary to get more youth engaged in fields like agriculture and manufacturing?
I think it's really about educating them on the fact that agriculture is not something to be quote unquote looked down on, and I think it's more so showing them that like these sectors, when you go into it, it can actually stimulate the economy and it could actually be a really good thing, to get into.
All right, and with that, Dana, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we are going to continue ventilating the topic of, the youth's perspective on the budget and diversification. Of course, thank you for your input so much. And with that, we do want to thank you, Dana Sukdeo, who is the Vice President of the Economic Society of the University of the West Indies. And congratulations on your recent graduation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.